author and healer Francine Vale is available now. Through Francine's life story, we learn how imperative it is to love one another. Once this simple truth is learned, peace on earth will prevail. Song of the Heart is a life lived and a story told for this purpose. To learn more about Francine and her amazing gifts, or to order your copy of the book today, visit angelsandlightbeings.com.
Jenn Morgan's here. We're talking about, this is really kind of fun for those of you out there. Radically Distinct Radio, the RAD methods, this is something that she created. And, part of this is what Jenn does to help others come forward, achieve their goals, and do it in a way that they want to get it done. It doesn't mean, right, Jenn, that, we're not capable of getting things done. But perception is part of the RAD method. And, now we're talking about perception as reality. But this is something you have to really cover exhaustively when you work with people. Who are some of the people that, in our culture that we point to say, oh, okay, I get that?
Well, I think Marilyn Monroe is a really good example for perception, and specifically because Marilyn Monroe was one of the most marketable actresses of her time. And by the writers and the directors who are contemporaries really consider her to be the character she created for herself, to be as brilliant as Charlie Chaplin's Tramp. And yet the public perception of her, meaning what everybody else thinks about her, we don't think about her in that way. We think about her as a dumb blonde. And in a kind of she's sexy, and we like to look at her. Maybe we want to be her or we want to marry her, one of those two things. But in general, we don't respect her intellect. But she actually was quite brilliant in the look that she designed intentionally, from the color of her hair to the way she did her makeup to the way she spoke, the tone of her voice, the way she walked with her body. All of that was a very intentional thing in order to create an alluring, to draw an audience. And she was fantastic at it, so good that she was at the top of her field. And yet this perception in the public kept coming back to haunt her because it affected her confidence in a deep level. No matter what she did, she was never really seen for being a brilliant actress and businesswoman. She was seen for being, quite honestly, stupid.
That was her personal brand, right? I mean, let's talk about personal brands. Do we all have to be Marilyn Monroe to have one?
No, and in fact, everybody has a personal understanding of themselves in the world, and that means everybody has a personal brand. You might not think about it like it's a personal brand, but it is. There's a lot of ways in which you're thinking about and or considering your personal brand. For example, if you're interviewing for a new job, you would be thinking, what am I going to say in this interview? How am I going to dress? All of those questions. But also, I would ask you as your brand strategist, is that the right job for you? Are you really thinking high enough in terms of the value that you can provide? Do you know the value that you can provide to an organization? All of those are brand awareness. How do I think about my brand? Online dating, the words that you put in your summary and the pictures you post. Are they an accurate representation of who you are, or do you end up showing up at the date and you and or the person that you've attracted is disappointed? And the work environment, are you respected by people? Do they come to you and seek out your advice for your area of expertise, or you're constantly in conflict with people around you because you feel like you have to prove that you have some sort of a value? That's also a brand awareness problem. Client attraction, are you attracting people who can pay you what you're worth or want what you're selling, or are you attracting people who really not really caring that much, they just kind of want to talk to you or not? That's an awareness of the value that you bring to the table. And how do you represent yourself in the world? Is it in alignment with the type of people that you want to attract? When you're trying to launch a new business, when you're thinking about how you're going to go about getting that out into the world, and you're looking at the goals in front of you, this plan that you laid out, are you paralyzed with fear because you aren't sure how to relate to that, how you specifically are going to be able to launch that business or that new career direction for yourself? Or if you're leading a company, are you somebody that people want to get behind, or are they just basically there punching in a time clock? All of those are brand challenges and brand questions that all stem from the perception you have of yourself or the perception that other people have of you.
Yeah. I mean, you get to see so much of people. You get to see where they are today and where they're going, right? And this is a part that people don't get to see of themselves, right?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to see yourself for a lot of reasons. One, we're trained, culturally speaking, to sit down, get in line, do what we're told, buy what we sell you, raise your hand when you want to talk. We're not taught to stand up and speak out and be unique. I mean, it makes sense from a business perspective, but from an individual perspective, we all deeply want to belong to something and we want to feel like we fit in. And yet that goes completely against our best interest when it comes to, moving to the forefront of your industry, getting a new product out there. Like, you've got to be willing to stand out and speak up and be different. It's hard.
Yeah. Let's talk about some examples if we could, because if you're sitting out there, you're thinking, well, wait a minute, why do I need a personal brand? What is it that I'm going to need this for? And I'll tell you, the day and age we're living in right now, this digital age we're living in right now, it is so obvious to a lot of people why what we're talking about here today, perception especially, is so important. One missed tweet, one missed Facebook post, one missed thing, typos in LinkedIn, all of that has an effect. Tell us about some examples. What are some examples?
Well, I don't know if you remember when the Tylenol crisis happened. I think it was in the 80s. Was that in the 80s? Was that in the 90s?
But I remember it like it was yesterday because I was scary.
Yeah. So when what happened, for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, I think it was in the 80s, but I'm not remembering the actual date, is that there was some person went and contaminated some Tylenol bottles with arsenic or some sort of poison that basically killed 7 people. 7 people died. And Tylenol basically has this product on their hand that's killing people. It doesn't matter, they did a lot of research and they eventually found out it didn't have anything to do with the factories that the Tylenol came from. So it wasn't really Tylenol's fault. Some person had literally gone around to different stores and gotten into these bottles. Maybe they bought them and then returned them. There's
1982, by the way.
1982.
Thanks, Ben.
1982.
There was about 7 deaths reported.
7 deaths.
Yep.
Yeah, so
Yep.
I was about 2. So, so this happened, and people, people are dying. A couple people from the same bottle, and Tylenol, it's not Tylenol's fault, right? So now all of a sudden, Tylenol has this faulty product that kills people. That's the perception. That's the reality. Even though Tylenol did not, Tylenol or Johnson & Johnson, really, it wasn't their fault. So what ended up happening was that the CEO at the time, he's now a historically famous CEO. He had to get everybody on board to recall all Tylenol on all shelves. It cost $100 million to do this. And in order to do that, there was a couple things that had to happen. One, he had to know that was the right thing to do because he was the leader, right? So what made him believe that that was the right thing to do? Well, if you look into his story, you'll find out that trust is a very important part of him believing that's what makes a good CEO and makes a good business person, that all business relationships are built on trust. And so here's a person who's in this position in this major crisis, and he says, you know what? No, our customers need to trust us. This is what we need to do. How am I going to sell this to a board of directors to get them to spend $100 million to take back off the shelf all these products? And it's really clearly not our fault. So he went to the company, Johnson & Johnson's Credo. And in the Credo, Credo is another word for manifesto. It basically says that our responsibility is first to our customers, then to our employees, then to our shareholders, or something of those. So he used that credo, that what the brand stands for, in order to sell to the shareholders the right thing to do. And then what they did is they recalled, cost $100 million, and then created these safety-proof bottles. And Johnson & Johnson's, like, literally, before that whole thing happened, I think I read they had 35% share of a huge market. 35% is a big deal. And then they had 4%, right?
Right.
And so now, they totally came back. They bounced back from it. So, a lot of times people were thinking, we're so afraid to make a mistake. Honestly, go ahead, make a mistake, get something out there, but then how you show up and respond. How do you fix the mistakes that you make? That's just as important. And how do you know what decisions to make in order to fix those mistakes? That comes down to your personal brand, your ability to know who you are and what the right thing to do is, so that you create the perception that you want about yourself as a CEO, about yourself as a company.
Yeah, and this is really something that you do in working with people to help them make this decision. You see, sometimes we think we don't have any choice about who we are in the world or how we can show up. We don't. We think that, okay, I'm going to kind of follow the herd. I'm going to go along this path. But the world has really changed. I mean, everything from who you are in your personal life, but how about who you are on the job? I mean, how does having a personal brand, affect people that are job hunting or date hunting?
Well, so I actually had a client who, she was a business for herself she was an entrepreneur. She had an event planning company, and she wanted to get a corporate job for a bunch of reasons. One, she didn't feel like she was financially making the amount of money she wanted to contribute to the household expenditures. And she also was starting to get to this point where she wanted to have children, and she felt like she wanted some sort of more security than what she felt the entrepreneurial life was going to afford for her. But the job that she thought she was well suited for, which was project manager, she didn't have any of the schooling and or credentials. However, she was an event planner, and she knew she could do the job when she looked at what the things that were required. And she didn't have maybe the time to take all of these things before she started to go and try to get that job. So we basically, I took her on just like, okay, so let's write a sales letter to these people who are going to hire you. Your resume is a sales letter, and your cover letter is the hook page, and then the details are in your resume. So what we did was we took a look at her skill set as an event producer, and then we translated that into language that made sense for the job that she was trying to get, which is project manager. And see, the difference when we're writing our own resume, for example, we tend like, okay, well, I got good communication skills. I'm a good leader. We use these generic terms that anybody could be. And sure, of course, you fit that. So how are you going to stand out? Well, how you're going to stand out is by getting very specific about how the fact that as an entrepreneur, you understand how to start a project from beginning to end, how to deliver on that project in a way that meets the expectations that you set. What does it mean to actually produce a project? And what does it mean to be able to have the hard conversations up front so that you get people into a decision-making position right from the beginning? So her ability to step into that role, all of a sudden she wasn't somebody who didn't have the credentials. All of a sudden she was a catch. And so she immediately got hired by Amazon, and then I think she moved to Microsoft, and this is where she eventually found her home. But what we have a tendency to do is say, I don't have the credentials. Maybe I should look for a lower, maybe I could be a project coordinator, or maybe I could be an administrative assistant and eventually work myself up. Well, if you have the skill set and you have the perception that you can do the job, then you most likely can do the job. So let's just figure out how to talk about it. And your personal brand part is the part that becomes how do you communicate that to the outside world? How do you show up in the world? Well, you got to have the right words. You have to dress the part. You also have to be able to have a conversation with another person that helps them understand that you know what you're talking about. It's not just some shtick that you put together. It's actually like you're actually understanding yourself, and you're thinking about yourself in relationship to that job.
Oh, I love this. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk about radically distinct perception. But, what is it exactly that Jenn does? She took you through a little bit high level, but how does she go through this? How does she look at helping us understand the world we live in as we see it and the world we live in as others see it? Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Sky Siegel co-hosts one of today's most popular psychic shows, Angels and Answers, with Artie Hoffman, as she communicates healing messages from the spirit world. These messages can be astounding, enlightening, and life-changing. Born with the God-given talent of inner guidance and the amazing ability to heal, Sky has healed thousands of people. Schedule a reading with Sky now. Call 908-500-1474 and visit skyofangels.com.
Do you want to achieve your goals? Do you want to strengthen relationships with others? Do you want to improve your financial status?